Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jayo Srila Prabhupada. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. Harshita, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, Ananya, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for
Hare
coming.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, I thought after yesterday's class, because yesterday's class was so intense, no one may come back. I thank you for coming back and increasing the confidence. I guess we can start. Just 1 minute. I'm just looking for it. Let's start with Harshita. Do I have to make co-host? Anyone else co-host or no?
I don't think so, Mataji, because no Mataji.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we'll start. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjan Chalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinbandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishbhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priyai. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so yesterday's chapter, what was the name? Name of chapter 4?
Yoga.
I'm sorry?
Jnana Yoga. Transcendental knowledge.
Jnana Yoga, very nice. What was the question that Arjun asked Krishna in that chapter? What did he ask?
How can Krishna, born as a son of Devaki, instruct Vivaswan, who is millions of years old?
Very nice. So somebody is listening. Very nice. Thank you so much. Okay, what was the question that Arjun asked Krishna in chapter 3? 1 question, 2 question. What were they? You can raise your hand, or I think we are small class today, or write in the chat. What did he ask in chapter 3? Quickly. What was Arjun's question in chapter 3 to Krishna? What is the name of chapter 3? Mataji, what is the name of chapter 3? Vijaya.
Karma Yoga.
Very nice. What was the question? What were the questions or question? Whatever you know.
No. Why you want to engage me in the welfare rather than intelligence?
Why you want to engage me in what?
Costly in welfare, work, activity.
Costly warfare. Okay.
Mm.
If
the intelligence is more better.
Intelligence is better than work. Very nice. Any other question that he asked? Did he ask anyone else? Did he ask anything else? Thank you, Mataji. So nice. What was the other question Arjun asked Krishna in chapter 3? Are you reading? Are you reading Bhagavad Gita? Are you reading? Are you reading Bhagavad Gita or no? No? You can tell me. I mean, I'm not like examining you. Are you all reading Bhagavad Gita?
No, Mataji.
You're not reading? Okay, just hearing right now. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, he asked Anicham Balad, what is that force that makes us do the wrong thing despite of knowing that this is wrong, as if pushed by a force? And Arjun, Krishna answers, it is lust only, Arjun, that burns, that converts into the wrath when the lust is not satisfied, and the origin of lust is from the greed. Okay, Karma Yoga. This chapter is also called Karma Yoga, but this chapter is called Action in Krishna Consciousness. So Krishna is going to teach us how to execute the principles of Karma Yoga. Let's pay our obeisances to Shri Radha Govinda before we proceed. Chapter 4, we studied this, transcendental knowledge about Krishna. Krishna gives us the history of Bhagavad Gita, importance of parampara, and then we studied a little bit about who Krishna is, why Krishna comes, when Krishna comes, what does he do when he comes, and what is the importance of knowing about Krishna's activities and descent. Krishna is the goal of all paths and the creator of Varnashram system. So Krishna created this, but Chatur Varna Maya system, Guna Karma Vibhagasha. He created it so that everyone can live peacefully in the material world and also lead to the spiritual world at the end of the life. Both. That's civilization, right? Civilization means peace. But we don't have that right now because we don't have Krishna in the center. And also Krishna said that as we surrender, he reveals himself. Then a little bit about the intricacies of karma. That intricacies are very difficult. It's described as a series of conversations by Krishna to Arjun from verse 16 to 24. But we picked up the verse number 17 where Krishna says, Karmanohi api bodhavyam. So intricacies of actions are very, very difficult to understand. So one should know what is action, what is inaction, and what is forbidden action. And then sacrifices that lead to transcendental knowledge. I briefly mentioned that in from verse 25 to 33. And summary of transcendental knowledge from 34 to 42nd verse. This is today's chapter. It's a very nice chapter. I find this chapter very practical and also kind of very funny. So Arjun is going to ask again, which is better, karma sannyas or karma yoga? Karma sannyas means take sannyas from the karma. Don't do, just, don't do the work. Or karma yoga, or do the work, but do it to get closer to Krishna. He's going to ask this again. He had already asked this question in chapter 3 in the beginning, right? That which one is better? Tadekam vada. Tell me one thing which is better. But what makes Arjun ask this question once again? So we're going to spend a little bit time to understand that what makes Arjun ask this question once again. Because we thought that Krishna has already answered it. And then Krishna is going to say that both are okay. Karma sannyas is okay. Karma yoga is also okay. But better is karma yoga. And then in karma yoga, he describes nishkam karma yoga is better. And then how one can work in nishkam karma yoga, but ultimately that's not the goal. That is not even the goal. Nishkam karma yoga is like a path to get to the point of focusing on Krishna. Okay, that's just a way. This is the first verse. Arjun uvacha sannyasam karmanam Krishna punar yogam cha samshashi yashreya etayor ekam tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Arjun said, "Oh Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again, you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?" So here, see the word sannyasam karma, like you tell me to renounce work, and then punar yogam cha samsashi, you tell me to work with devotion. So that's punar means again, you tell me yogam cha samsashi, you tell me to work with devotion. Yashreya etayor ekam. Tell me one thing. Will you please tell me like which of the two? Tanme bruhi sunishchitam. More like nishchitam means definitely. Sunishchitam means more beneficial. Which one is more beneficial? Karma sannyas or karma yoga or working with devotion? Okay, what made Arjun ask this question again? So let's go back to the series of events that led to the confusion once again. Okay, in chapter 2, do you remember this? That Arjun gave reason in chapter 1 that I'm not going to fight because my family is object of my compassion. And Krishna gave him the knowledge of the soul that you are misdirecting your compassion. You are directing your compassion to the body, but they're not body, they're soul. So are you. So where is the compassion for the soul? So do you remember this? So that's jnana, that's knowledge.
Yes.
Yes, Mataji.
Some memories there? Okay, thank you. So, and then in the same chapter, so he gives jnana, and then he says, Arjun had given this reason also in first chapter, that I will incur sinful reaction if I kill the elders of the family. And Krishna gave him the knowledge of Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, that in this path of devotional service, there is no sin. So basically, he's encouraging that you're not going to incur the sin, so you have to do the work, or you have to do this service to Krishna. So first he gave the knowledge which Arjun misunderstood to be inertia. He thought that knowledge means no work. Okay, and then Buddhi Yoga means work. So first confusion came from this chapter. And then again, in third chapter, verse 17 and 18, Krishna further uses gives the instruction which confuses Arjun. He says in 17th verse, but for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self alone, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. So basically, he's saying that a completely self-realized devotee has no duty. So when we read this, don't we think that, okay, that means if I become self-realized, I don't need to fight a war? Don't we think this, that I can just renounce it? Yes?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes.
Yes, Mataji. Yeah.
Thank you. And then again in 18th verse of the same chapter, a self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. So again, this is like a little bit confusing statement. Actually, there is no confusion. It is clear. We are trying to, or Arjun on our behalf is trying to create a confusion so we can get this cloud of confusion cleared by Krishna's words or instructions. So here again, like self-realized person has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duty. But the next line is that nor has he any reason not to perform such work. Basically, a self-realized person also performs the work. This question, 18th chapter is another summary of the whole Bhagavad Gita. This question will come up again in 18th chapter, where Arjun is going to ask Krishna, what is the renounce order of life and what is the purpose of such renunciation? Where Krishna is going to describe that even a self-realized person should not renounce the religious activities. O chastiser of enemy, in 4th chapter, Krishna says, O chastiser of enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possession. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. So again, Arjun is like very attentively hearing, and Krishna is telling him that the ultimate end of all the sacrifices is to acquire transcendental knowledge. Again, so Arjun thinks that, oh, so transcendental knowledge is better than the work. So I might just, be satisfied with the knowledge. So, but at the end of 4th chapter, Krishna says, therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharat, stand and fight. So towards the end of 4th chapter, he says, okay, the knowledge is like a weapon and ignorance is like a demon. So you slash this demon with the knowledge or weapon of knowledge. And after doing that, stand up and fight. So ultimately, he's saying that you work. It is very clear. Krishna is emphasizing at every chapter that one needs to work in devotional service, not like sit and become a burden on the society or on our own self by not working or cultivating the false renunciation. But work has to be done for Krishna. Anyhow, so just to give summary, how this confusion is brought about. So chapter 2, Krishna gives knowledge of Gyan, like soul, which is Gyan. And then in the same chapter, he encourages Arjun to fight through, because in devotional service, there is no sin, and that's Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. But in now here, Arjun becomes confused that which of the two is better, Gyan or Buddhi Yoga. He asks in chapter 3, which one is better, Gyan or renunciation, or Buddhi Yoga or Nishkam Karma or working. And chapter 3, what should he do? He asked this question to Krishna, that what should he do? Tadekam Vada. And he heard that about karma through jnana, action in inaction and inaction in action. So we have to work, but we have to work with knowledge of Krishna. And the chapter concluded by glorifying the transcendental knowledge. And then in chapter 4, at the end, Krishna says, stand and fight. So he's a little bit confused, or he's a little bit seeking more clarification. This is just another view of what I said. Again and again, emphasizing, because so many people get confused that where is this confusion coming from? Prabhupada has explained it very nicely. So it's easy, right? So in devotional service is better than dry mental speculation. Chapter 2, again, I'm repeating again for the third time. Krishna gives knowledge of the soul, which is Gyan. But in the same chapter, he gives knowledge about the Buddhi Yoga, or working for Krishna. So in chapter 3, verse 17 to 18, he explains that there is no duty for a person in knowledge, but he also says that such a person has no reason not to perform work. So there's no duty, but they still do the work for Krishna. And chapter 4, he explains in verse 33, all kinds of sacrificial work culminates in knowledge. So again, Arjun gets confused that knowledge is better than work, because work is culminating in knowledge. But at the end, Krishna tells Arjun, get up and fight. So now he's confused. So chapter 5, Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. Is it clear? Is there anyone in this class who's not clear that what makes Arjun confused? Yes, no? So if no one is asking, you can even write in the chat, then I assume that it is clear, and I will go ahead. So it is clear why Arjun
Yes,
is
Mataji,
confused
it's
again?
clear.
It's clear, Mataji.
Okay,
Mataji.
but to really like enforce it in the memory, please go back and read at least the first 4 verses of our 5th chapter today, immediately after the class. At least first 4 verses. Okay, so you become it becomes a little bit more thick in the memory. Okay, so chapter 5, all beings are constantly making plans for future. Like, so we are thinking, what am I going to do next? Everyone. And thoughts are manifested in action. Repeated actions form our habits. This becomes our habit. Habit makes up our character. Character determines our destiny, and how to take steps in the right direction is described in the 5th chapter. Okay, so how do we take steps, or how do we prime our thoughts so that our actions are good? So from this particular aspect, so that everything else will follow. There are steps leading to further entanglement in worldly complexities, and there are steps leading to life of liberation, freedom and tranquility and peace. So we have a choice. So we'll be given a clear choice as to what to do. Again, thoughts manifest in action, action manifest in habits, habits manifest in character, character describes our destiny. Prabhupada says that, and we have heard that too, that man is an architect of his own destiny, right? Have you heard this? Man is an architect of his own destiny.
Yes, Mataji.
So we hear this big statement, so thank you, but we don't know how. So Krishna will tell us how. So Arjun is still confused. Why? Because it is Krishna's plan to keep Arjun confused. Not that Arjun is not convinced of Krishna's position, but Krishna wants him to be confused. Why Krishna does so? For our benefit, to stress that work and renunciation are not opposed to each other. Rather, one must learn to work in a renounced spirit. Arjun thinks that Gyan implies renunciation of work, right? Like, I am going to become a Gyani and I will not work. And knowledge and work, like light and darkness, are contradictory. Krishna emphasizes, however, that one in knowledge should also work. It's a misnomer. So now Krishna will start to talk from verse number 2, clearing Arjun's doubt. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nirchayasya Kara Ubhau Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate. The personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. So Karma Yogo Vishishyate. So both are okay, he's saying, right? Both are okay. Renunciation of work and work in devotion are good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. See? So people say that when we go to Krishna consciousness, we become lazy. or it is the path that one should take when everyone has is done, when one is done with the other responsibilities of their life. Right. One has gotten their children married, one has worked for 30-40 years of their life, one has a good retirement plan, and then they can retire, and then they can start this Krishna consciousness, because basically this work or cultivation of Krishna consciousness is for people who have nothing else to do. They have done everything, right? Do you resonate with this
Yes,
understanding?
Yes, Mataji.
So
Yes,
that's,
Mataji.
and thank you. I was interested in knowing where is it coming from? Like who like grounded this kind of thought? Because we don't find that in the scriptures. We don't find that. Neither do Srila Prabhupada talks about it even once, that this is an armchair philosophy and it should only be taken until one gets retired. On the contrary, neither is Krishna choosing a very big jnani or scholar or a very big yogi to speak Bhagavad Gita. He is choosing Arjun, who may be a very good fighter. Not maybe, he's a very good fighter. He is very pious, but he is a married man. He is standing in the war field. He has to run the kingdom. He has to earn money to run his family. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead is choosing him to talk about the transcendental knowledge. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, repeatedly we hear from different personalities that one should take up this spiritual life from the very beginning. So much of miscommunication roaming around in the world, and we choose to live by it. Right? We make a choice that whatever you're saying or whatever I'm hearing is right. I'm going to be so obedient and I'm going to follow what I heard, and this is how my life should be. And Bhagavatam says that kind of a life as, what does Bhagavatam says? Anyone knows? What kind of a life is this, where one lives like this and dies like this, where within this ignorance? What kind of a life is this? Anyone knows what is the word used? I'll give you a hint. It's 7th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. If somebody knows, it's called as Puna. Oh, somebody's okay. Samriddhi Mataji, go ahead. Mataji, go ahead.
Pretender. I'm just he or she is just pretending like.
Pretender. Okay, that's also a nice one. Yes. That we are pretending. Okay, thank you, Mataji. Yes, that's a very nice one. But Srimad Bhagavatam says that kind of a life is chewing the chewed. Have you seen that cow when they eat and then they go on chewing, and then they put the food in the first stomach? They have 4 stomachs, right? And then when they're resting, they regurgitate and bring it back in their mouth, and then they chew it again. Do you know this? Like they chew the chewed. So
Yes, Mataji.
this kind of a life is called as chewing the chewed. Punha punhas charvita charvananam. Again and again, chewing the chewed. Who wants to regurgitate on swallowed food? Right? We actually we don't want to do it. Anyhow, so this is a story from 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, that how fruitive activities are so dangerous. So there was a king called Nriga. This person is called Nriga. He was very fond of performing fruitive activities, karmakand yagyas. Karmakand yagyas means do a sacrificial ceremony so that your material desire gets fulfilled. Like let's say I should have a good rain, so I'll do Indra Yagya. I should have good wealth, so this puja, that puja, for a material desire, not for spiritual desire. But he was very expert. So, but he did one mistake. Actually, it was not even his mistake, but it happened. And he was very rich, very rich. After one of such kind of fruitive activities, he gave cows bedecked with costly silken clothes and jewelry to the brahmanas who performed the yagya. Okay, so he donated huge amounts. It's written there that the donation amount was equal to a number of dust particles on earth or number of stars in the sky. It was so much. Okay, so one brahmana who got his donated herd was walking with his herd back. And there's so many cows that you cannot even like count. But somehow one cow escaped his herd, and he saw it, and he ran behind the cow to get it back. But by the time that cow had already mixed with the not donated herd, and King Nriga, not knowing this, had redonated the same cow to another Brahmana along with the other cows. So he came and he said, "This was my cow. It was already donated. It somehow escaped from my herd, and I need to reclaim it." And then this Brahmana said, "No, you're lying. Do you have a video recording?" So I'm kidding, but you're lying. He didn't believe. So these two Brahmanas started fighting. This is mine. This is mine. There's so many cows, but they're fighting over one cow. So King Nriga came. He was humble. He said, "I'm sorry. This is my mistake. I should have had better arrangements. But please let this cow go with this Brahmana, and in return, I will give you 1 lakh cows." So 1 lakh cows, milking cows. They were all milking cows. 1 lakh milking cows versus 1 cow. Good deal, right? But then they were so angry that they cursed King Nriga, that you're going to have to suffer for this sinful activity. They cursed him. So as a result of which he became a lizard in the well. But he had one benediction that when Krishna will come, then he will deliver King Nriga. So after many, many millions of years, so this lizard stayed in this well. Where Krishna came with his family for a picnic in the park where there was this well, and this Nriga was in the form of a lizard. And Krishna's sons were playing, and they saw this lizard and they tried to take it out, but they couldn't. And they called their father, father, there is a lizard. So Krishna came, and with his left hand, he picked it and brought it out. And then he, of course, by the touch of Krishna, King Nriga regained his body, and then he prayed to Krishna that I thought that fruitive activities are so beneficial, but see, I had to spend so much time as a lizard, so it's not so conducive for in the long run. Okay, so King Nriga was fond of performing fruitive activities, sacrifices, charity. He did one mistake. He dissatisfied two Brahmanas and incurred the sinful reaction, and he became a lizard for a very long time. Was delivered by Krishna. King Nriga confessed the futility of fruitive activities, and he said devotional service is only auspicious activity for the soul. We don't live life from the right platform. Atma gives energy to the body and mind and intelligence. Atma. We don't nurture the Atma. Anyhow, so this is another discussion brought about in the purport by Rupa Goswami Prabhupada. So let's say now I'm gonna give you 2 scenarios, okay, and you're gonna answer. Please, if I am requesting, I cannot force anyone here. So let's say that there is a person who is very renounced, very renounced, lives in the top of the Himalayan jungle. With all due respect, they are also quite austere devotees. Does not interact with anyone, does not come down, has very less demands in life, and is completely isolated. Okay, so that person is and he or she says that the reason why they don't come to the material world or to the cities is because if they come, then they will be entangled in Maya, and everything is Maya, and I'm very scared of Maya, so I'm not going to come. So there's going to be no interaction, so there's going to be no Maya, right? So that's one renunciant. And the other devotee of Krishna is, they both are devotees, because they're different kinds of devotees. The other is the renunciation is that I'm actually going to travel from one part of the world to another part of the world to spread this message of Krishna. And I will use whatever it takes to spread that message. If it takes an airplane, I will do that. If it takes a ship, I'll do that. If it takes a computer, I will do that. If it takes a microphone, a phone, I will do that, because through these things I can spread Krishna's message. So I will go to the thickest part of the city in the very, very big countries, and I will try to preach Krishna consciousness over there. So who is a better renunciant? Yes, who's a better renunciant? You can raise your hand, because if I unmute everyone, then I'm gonna hear both the things. So you can bring your up. And and it's a bias. It's a safe platform to express yourself. Yes, Mataji.
The second one.
The second one, but are you sure? Are you sure? Because you see, people say that we don't use these big devices, big phones, or big airplanes, because we are so renounced, and renunciation does means that we should not use those things.
But I'm using those to deliver Krishna's message.
Very nice.
Everyone.
Very nice. Thank you. So this is what, thank you so much. And I think unanimously, everyone who's writing in the chat also is saying the same thing. This is Goswami Prabhupada's principle of renunciation. Prapanchikitaya buddhaya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshubhi parityago vairagyam falgu katyate. When persons eager to achieve liberation renounce things related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thinking them to be material, their renunciation is incomplete. Incomplete. Okay, falgu, that vairagya is falgu, kathyate is said. That vairagya is incomplete because they are renouncing something which actually was never theirs. Real renunciation is use it to whom it belongs, right? That's real renunciation. Let's say that in your house, somebody comes to clean your house, and they come and they work and then they go. So they do their work, but they don't get attached to, oh, I'm not going to do it because it is not mine, or because I have nothing to do with it. They do it and then they do it as a service. Of course, it's not a good example because there is some exchange of money. But here, that's not the question. But the point I'm trying to make, is it clear? Or what Prabhupada is trying to explain us? That renunciation is incomplete. And again, so thank you. So again, our acharyas are saying that work has to be done, but has to be done in spirit of renunciation. And it's an art how to do this. Okay, so basically karma yoga or karma sannyas, which one is better? I think now you can tell me this. Yes, which one is better? Karma yoga or karma sannyas?
Karma yoga. Karma yoga. Karma yoga.
Karma yoga.
This is according to Bhagavad Gita, okay? We're not like, okay, Bhagavad Gita teaches renounce everything. No, renounce everything in a proper manner as a service to Krishna. So work with the spirit of renunciation. So, Gene sanitya sannyasi yona dveshtina kankshati nirdvando hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is said to be always renounced. So the fruit of activity is renounced, but not the activity. Such a person, liberated from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated, O mighty armed Arjun. We all deserve this kind of happy life. Actually, we deserve it. You know why? Because Krishna keeps us like that. When we are with Krishna in Golok Vrindavan, he keeps us like that. He makes sure that we are happy. And because we are not there, now we are looking for that happiness. And now Krishna is telling us again that you can get it back. You can get it back by working in the spirit of renunciation. And that is taught. See, this is not mental concoction. Not like, okay, I'm going to go and drink drink a lot of coffee so that I can work for Krishna. And that's the spirit of renunciation. Not like that, okay? We need whatever we are doing, because we are not pure, or because we don't know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Everything that we do for Krishna has to be double checked by Guru, Krishna, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So Guru is a spiritual master, Sadhu are the saintly people, and Shastras are the scriptures. So if these three sources say that this activity is bona fide, is going to help you to progress in Krishna consciousness, then do it. If they say no, then don't do it. That is the renunciation. And then do something else then. Okay, so renounce results and not the action. This is another story of Srila Haridas Thakur. So Haridas Thakur, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu named him or declared him to be Namacharya, or the Acharya of the chanting of the holy name. So what happened? He used to chant so many names. I think it was 300,000 names a day. So he used to chant basically 22 hours or 24 hours. He could do that. He wasn't like faking or running away from some job or was trying to, separate himself from some other stressor in life. No, he was totally transcendently situated. We can't do that. So don't try to imitate. We can pray to him, but we cannot imitate. But because of the pure devotional service, fame follows. In material world, we are living a very opposite life. In material world, we are trained that try to attract fame somehow or other. Okay, but in the spiritual life, what happens is that we try to attract Krishna, and everything else follows. As the queen's chaste queen follows the king, like that, all these other subsets that serve Krishna automatically follow. We don't see Prabhupada advertising himself in newspaper that here I have landed, come and see me, or putting out, or he did not even have one phone when he was propagating the worldwide movement, and he did it because pure devotional service automatically attracts the fame, automatically attracts. Of course, we can use all that platforms to spread Krishna consciousness. Anyhow, the point I'm trying to make is that because of his pure devotional service and because of his pure chanting, that was his service, chanting the holy name. Krishna liked his chanting, so he would chant for Krishna. That's a different level of chanting. So fame followed. He became very famous as a very saintly person. So the local leader of that group, of that place where Haridas Thakur was living and sitting and chanting, became very envious. He became very envious that how can somebody be more famous than me? I should be the one more famous, and how can this person is more famous? So he actually tried to defame. It's an offense actually. He tried to defame Haridas Thakur. So what he did, he hired a very beautiful prostitute. Actually, it was Maya Devi herself. She was a very beautiful prostitute. He told her that you go in the middle of the night and you try to allure him, the young boy, and we will catch him and then we will defame him. So that's envy. That's how envy works. So my spiritual master defines envy, which I like. I understand better his definition. Envy he defines as, I like what you have. I really like what you have. But I don't like the fact that you have it. I should be the one having it, right? So that's envy. So that person was envious. And then he liked that the fame was there, but he wanted to have it, not that he wanted Haridas Thakur to have it. Anyhow, so this lady goes, and then she and it's like nighttime. So Haridas Thakur is chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And he sees her, and then he says, thank you so much for coming. Why don't you sit down for some time? I just have made like a vow of chanting specific number of rounds. You see, the promise is sometimes broken, but vow cannot be broken. So I have made a vow. So few more minutes, let me just finish my rounds and then I will talk to you. Okay, and then we'll see what you want. So the whole night passed, right? And then the sun broke out in the morning. She kept sitting, she kept listening, and then she got up and then she left. And then the next night she came again, so second night. And then Haridas Thakur apologized to her that I'm so sorry. Yesterday I was so engaged in chanting the holy name that I was so slow in chanting. Today I will chant very quickly, and then I'll talk to you. So I promise. Okay, so sit down. So she sat down in the courtyard, and then he's chanting. And again the same thing happened. Again the morning came, the sun broke, and then she left. And then the third night she came back. So when she came back for the third night, she was very critical, because now she was like very critical, that she couldn't understand that she's the most famous prostitute of the area, and everyone like makes time for her, and here she is waiting all night for this person, and he's not like giving her any time. So she got this sense of rejection, and out of curiosity she asked that what is more relishing than associating with the opposite gender? What is more relishing? So then Haridas Thakur said, yes, I was waiting for you to ask me this question. Otherwise, I knew even before you came the first night that you're going to come. So I would have just left this place even before you came, but I waited for you to ask this question. So he told her about Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and he initiated her. And then what happened? Then she shaved her hair and sat down in the courtyard of Haridas Thakur near his Tulsi plant, and she started chanting, and Haridas Thakur left. So that's 1 second. That's the pure devotee. That's the potency of a pure devotee. It's not that like we work so that we can run our life, but a pure devotee teaches by example. That's an acharya. Okay, so this is what Krishna is saying. That's why this story was brought up. That Brahmani adhaya karmani sangam tyakta karoti yaha lipyate sa papena padma patram ivam bhasha. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results onto the Supreme God, is not affected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. So you see, a lotus leaf lives in the muddy, mushy waters, right? The leaf is there, but we don't see the leaf getting wrinkled or losing its texture because of constant touch with the muddy water or water per se. Do we see that? Do we see that it's like affected by the quality of water, the leaf of the lotus? It remains as it is, right? So Krishna is saying that this is how we must live. It's not that I'm going to run away from everything. No. So my spiritual master explains it in a way. Act like this service depends on you. Act like that, but know within that Krishna has to sanction everything. Act like that, but know from within. So it means that you do it with full enthusiasm, but within you know that if Krishna doesn't sanction, it will not happen. So that will not lead to frustration of endeavor. Okay, because within I knew that Krishna has to sanction. He didn't sanction. Okay, but that's a very difficult stage to be at. And I'm not at that stage anyhow. And this person, and the other meaning is that this particular devotee, even if they're living in the material world, they're not a part of the material world. Like, the lotus leaf, Krishna is giving example, is living in the muddy water, but is not a part, does not become a part of the muddy water, does not imbibe the qualities of that water. Like that, Haridas Thakur was living in that particular place. The prostitute came to him, but he did not imbibe her qualities. So Krishna consciousness gives us a shield. If you have a protective armor, then we don't get touched by the weapons of the opposite party. Like that, Krishna consciousness provides us the armor that we don't get touched by these things around us, even if they're there, unless and until we choose to remain in Krishna consciousness. If we choose to come out of it, then again we fall back. Because I'm going to show you this video and then I'm going to ask you one question. Okay, so watch carefully. Uh-oh, what did I do? Okay, so that was Srila Prabhupada in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. Okay, there used to be a place in San Francisco near Golden Gate Park called Hippie Hill. Like it's a park, but then there was this hill in the park where all the hippies would sit. So I showed you that Prabhupada is sitting with all these hippies. And he's a sannyasi, but see, all these people are hippie. So because he's sitting with these hippies, does it become that he becomes one of them? Does it become that he becomes one of them?
No, Mataji.
No.
No.
What is
No,
so
Mataji. No, Mataji.
he remains untouched, right? In fact, he gives them Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
So that is an acharya. Thank you. So that is an acharya. So acharya is not a small thing. And Krishna likes it. That's why he spends so much time in Bhagavad Gita talking about that person. And he doesn't Krishna doesn't say anything to us if he doesn't think we cannot do it. Because Krishna is one best friend. There are 3 levels of friendship described in second chapter lecture. Prabhupada gives a lecture on one of the verses in second chapter, and he says there are 3 levels of friendship in this world. One is called Mitra, another is called Bandhu, and another is called Suhrat. Okay, so Krishna is Suhrat. Suhrat means best friend, best of the best friends, and best of the best friend is always a well-wisher. So Krishna goes on talking about this person who is self-realized, who's free from duality so many times, every chapter, and many times in every chapter. So he again says, become like that. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastimi Suni Cheva Sopakavecha Pandita Samadarshina. So some Pandita Samadarshina. So what is that humble? The humble sage by virtue of true knowledge sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. So by virtue of the transcendental knowledge, a person is able to see the Atma inside and not so much the dress. Okay. So there is this, anyway, if you remind me at the end of the class, I'll tell you one story about Prabhupada, but you have to remind me. Okay, so not like when we go to a saintly person, a real saintly person, and not a cheater, because there's so many cheaters. And then a sincere person, if they're trying to seek some spiritual knowledge and they meet some cheater, then they may get frustrated, right? That remember yesterday we studied Raga, Bhaya, and Krodha. So the Krodha arises because of frustration, because they actually never met someone who was so sincere. But we should not get so distressed, because have faith on Krishna. If you are seriously sincere or seriously serious about the path, then one day will come where we will be directed automatically to such a place where the truth is spoken in a truthful manner. And Prabhupada does that. When Prabhupada was in Germany, his disciples he was telling us one time, when Prabhupada was in Germany, Prabhupada was in the room. So the people, his own disciples, became a little bit curious that how can somebody be so like crystal clear, so honest? Like how can somebody be so honest? So they couldn't believe that how can someone have no filter, like whatever they are when they are in their private life is what they are in their public life. So what they did is that they used to spy. They used to spy on Prabhupada. So that time there was no smart cameras, right? So they said, the door, the keyhole of the door, they would take turns and watch from the door, the keyhole of the door, what Prabhupada is doing in the room. And somebody maybe from the window of the room will be like also seeing that what Prabhupada is doing, because they really wanted to be sure. And they saw that Prabhupada is when he's alone, he's sometimes chanting Hare Krishna, he's sometimes translating books, sometimes he's eating prasadam, and then sometimes he's resting, sometimes he's chanting and translating, and nothing else. There was nothing else. So it was very interesting to hear directly from them. But this is one of my favorite verses. It's very funny verse. So far we have heard that Arjun became confused once again, and we had a little bit more detailed discussion as to what prompted Arjun's confusion once again. And then he asked that tell me one thing again, like what is more beneficial, leaving the work or working with devotion? Then Krishna says both are okay, but work is better. And then we discussed that what kind of work. So or which renunciation is better, the renunciation which entails no work, or renunciation where one works with devotion, right? We had that. And then we discussed that prapanchakritaya buddhaya hari sambandhi vastuna. So any person who's leaving the things that can be used in the service of the Lord, that kind of renunciation is Falgu Vairagya Kathete is incomplete renunciation. And then I showed you the story of King Riga. Then we discussed the pastime of Lord Haridas Thakur, Prabhupada. And then Krishna says in 5.10 that we have to, that person is a Padma Patram Ivam Bhasha, the lotus leaf remains untouched by the water. So like that person who is transcendently situated is not touched by the dualities, but who is not situated is touched by the dualities. Okay, and then I showed you Prabhupada's video in the Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, sitting with the hippies, and then we discussed that which is he still a renunciant or not. And then Krishna again emphasized the importance of becoming a pandit, a learned person, because that will help one get out of the dualities. Now Krishna is going to give us, this is the second last verse, we're almost done, that Krishna is going to give us the other part of the thing, right? The other part, that one is not situated in the transcendental platform and is very busy in acquiring things for sense objects for enjoyment of the senses. Very, very busy. So what happens? What kind of enjoyment is that? So Krishna says, Yehi samsparsha jabhoga dukkha yonaya evate adi antavanta kanteya nate shuramate buddha. So it's a Yehi samsparsha jabhoga, samsparsha. So sparsha means touch, right? Bhoga means enjoyment. So Krishna is saying the enjoyment that arises from the touch of what? Sense object with the senses. But we do that, right? Okay, my eye is a sense of vision, and sense object is like a movie or something, right? So my sense is like hankering for that sense object. So when they come in contact, like I sit and watch movies, so senses are coming in contact with the object of the senses. That's the movie or the TV. And then I have a notion that I'm going to enjoy this, right? That's why we do it, that I'm going to enjoy this. So now Krishna says that kind of enjoyment which arises from the touch of the sense object with the senses, what is it? Dukkha yonaya evate is a place of misery, the source of misery. That enjoyment is a source of misery. Why is it a source of misery? Because our civilization is designed in such a manner where our sense objects, the objects of our senses is increasing, and the more we can have our objects, the more rich we are, right? The more successful we are. If we are walking to my work with my legs, then I am not civilized. If I take a bike ride, then I am poor. If I have a scooter, then I am better than the one who was walking and then who had a bike. But if I have a Mercedes or nowadays Tesla, right, that car, or Lamborghini, then I am very rich, right? This is the objects. As the objects increase, my definition of richness or success in life increases. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead is saying that's the source of misery. That's where the misery is. Why? Adi antavanta kanteya. O son of Kunti, because such enjoyment has a beginning and an end. Adi means beginning, Anta means end. So because such enjoyment has a beginning and end, but you are eternal. You're not supposed to have a beginning or end. So nateshu ramate buddha. So a buddha means a wise person is not going to endure any happiness in there. Is not going to delight in such a happiness. Okay, so another example is, let's say, okay, an intelligent person does not take part in sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. So that person is intelligent. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end. So the wise man does not delight in them. So how come? Because it's totally contradictory to what we are being taught from the very beginning of our life, right? Nowadays, why do we send our children to school and college? Do we send them so that they can learn Bhagavad Gita? Is Bhagavad Gita taught in the schools, college? Is it taught?
No, Mataji.
No, ma'am. No, Mataji.
So why are we sending them to school? Let's be honest. Because I want them to get a good education. Why I want them to get a good education? So that they can get a good college. They can go to an Ivy League university. Okay, what makes me go? What makes me want my children to go to an Ivy League university so that they can have a good career? What makes me have them a good career so that they can have good money? What makes me have them good money so that they can have good life or a good wife, right? So that's a very big, the beginning, the foundation is very wrong. I'm not saying that we should not let them work and have money, but the foundation is wrong, and it is going to lead to a definite frustration. Who was saying the other day? I think I was talking to some devotee saying that we adore the countries which have so many resources, resource rich countries, right? And then we try to go there by hook or by crook. We are not Prabhupada that we are trying to go everywhere in the whole planet to propagate Krishna consciousness. We try to go somewhere to see what we can get out of that place, not to serve that place so much. Okay, so but then what is happening in those countries when you really come to that country? The rate of mental disorders is highest, right? It's highest. The rate of suicide, depression, anxiety, dissatisfaction, dysfunctional families, everything is highest, right? We don't want the culture from there. We just want the resources, right? So am I right or wrong? I'm speaking on the public platform openly, but I have a benefit that not many people will hear me. Anyway, so coming back to this, so we are going to look at the animal kingdom where the senses are coming in contact with the sense object for enjoyment. So if you have seen after the rainfall, these moths become very prominent, and they are attracted to the bright light of the street lamp. So because they like it, so they are like running in like herds, like hundreds of them go. Then what happens? They touch the bulb, and bulb is hot. So because of the vision, they touch the bulb and the hot bulb, and then they fry, and then they get fried and they die. So the senses came in contact with the sense object, and there was a result. The sense of hearing is very prominent in the deer. How is deer is caught? Because the hunter plays a very nice flute and the deer gets attracted. So the sense of hearing brings the deer near to where the flute is played. And then what happens? Then he's caught by the hunter, right? Then it's done. Or the sense of smell. The honeybee has a very intense sense of smell. So it goes on from one flower to another flower to collect the nectar. And sometimes what happens that it goes inside the flower to collect the nectar, and in the evening the flower petals close when the sun sets, so it gets entrapped. So it went to satisfy its sense of smell, and then it got trapped, right? Or the sense of taste. This poor fish, she has so much food underwater to eat, but how a fisherman catches a fish, throws a bait, right? And then it gets attracted to the bait, and then it wants to it goes for it, and then it is caught. So the senses are coming in touch with the sense object. These are examples in front of us from the nature. And sense of touch, such a big elephant, such a big animal, elephant, how is he caught? So the hunter trains the she elephant to go and allure him, and he digs a pit and covers it up with these bamboo shoots. So the she elephant is trained to go around the pit, but the he elephant who is walking behind her does not know what is he getting into, so he gets trapped. This is an example, live examples for us. So in animal kingdom, they have one sense very prominent, right? Sense of vision, hearing, smell, taste, or touch. One is more prominent. But what is our condition in the human form? Our condition is miserable because all the senses are very prominent. It's not like one over the other. All of them are very prominent. And if we go on looking for the objects for our senses day in and day out, then we are actually laying down a life full of frustration for us. Full of frustration. So nate shuramate Buddha. A wise man does not delight on it. It doesn't mean that we don't satisfy our senses, but we satisfy our senses in a better manner, not in the material way. So Krishna says, then what? What is the peace? Because he wants us to be peaceful. So this is called as peace formula in Bhagavad Gita. Bhoktaram yagnatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim rachati. So Bhoktaram. So who's the enjoyer? I am. So he says, I am the enjoyer. Bhoktaram, enjoyer of what? Yagya and tapasa. All the sacrifices and all the austerities. But done by who? Done by who? I'm the enjoyer of all the sacrifices and all the austerities done by who? Who's doing this? Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Every living entity in every single nook and corner of this planet, or entire creation, material and spiritual. Whatever austerity and sacrifices one does, Krishna is the only enjoyer. Only enjoyer. We are secondary enjoyers. Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. I'm the best friend. You see the word Suhrat? Sarvabhutanam. Best friend of who? Sarvabhutanam. All species. All the living entities, not just human beings, even the animals, the trees, the water, the land, everywhere, the atom or the microorganisms, for everyone, Krishna is the best friend. So one who understands that Krishna is the only enjoyer and Krishna is the best friend of all living entities, Gyatva Mam, one who understands me in such a manner, Shantim Rachati, gets the peace, not anyone else who's looking for some myself to enjoy, or I want to become the best friend of everyone. We can try, but know that we cannot actually be the real best friend. We can try on behalf of Krishna, and the best friend will give a message of Krishna to the other friend. That's a best friend. So the sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material miseries. Okay. So this is what we did today. Karma Sannyasa or Karma Yoga, which is better? Yashreya, which is better? Arjun asked this question. Krishna starts from verse 2 to 6. He emphasizes that Karma Yoga is better. Karma Yoga Vishishyate. And then from verse 7 to 16, he describes that how that Karma Yoga is performed and what is the benefit of performing that. Nishkam Karma Yoga is that we work. It's not that we don't work, but we give the fruit to Krishna, whatever it is, good or bad. But the work has to be sanctioned by Guru Sadhu Shastra, okay? Kurvan apina lipati. And then there we understood, if we go on working in that way, we don't get affected by sinful reaction, as the lotus leaf is not touched by water. And then liberation by focus on the Supreme, where we discussed that a person who is not working in Krishna consciousness, and is working to gratify the senses, then that particular person is actually laying down a life of frustration for themselves. Krishna is saying it. So what do we do? How do we become peaceful? Gyatva mam shantim rachti. Know this about me, that I am the ultimate enjoyer of all the sacrifices and austerities. I am the best friend of all living entities. Okay, I have a video to show